Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody? Just checking in. Thanking God for being in the number this morning. So, let's get right to it. So, on my last video, I did speak about, we touched on how our traumas affect our parenting relationships um, and our style of parenting. Um, and we'll probably touch on that again because, again, I'm literally just scratching the surface of a lot of these things. And so, it's just to spark the conversation and then we'll get into it a little bit deeper. Definitely get into the comment section. I want to hear from you. I love to engage. I just thank everybody who has supported in any way, shape, or form. I hit 100 downloads of my podcast. I'm super excited and humbled because it's definitely different to know that people are listening to you. Someone is being empowered and encouraged by this platform that God has given me. And I'm just super, super, super humbled and grateful. And I pray that He continues to give me the words to continue on this journey with you all, and the courage to continue to share my journey. Because, again, what I share with you is personal. This is my personal journey. Um, these are the things that I'm working to overcome daily. And God is just, giving me the unction to share that with you. And I just continue to pray that it helps somebody. Look out for the book. She emerged, the manifestation of me, discussing some very pivotal traumatic moments in my life and how I overcame them and how I moved on from them. And again, it's my healing is ongoing, as yours will be. Um, and so I'm just excited to have you on this journey with me. This is big for anybody to sit and just pour out and be as candid and open, um, as God has instructed me to be. And especially for a person like myself who is very private and I hold a lot of things close to the vest. So I pray that you're getting something out of this. Um, so after the last video and podcast that I put out, um, I was kind of given the urgence to share with you all, and just a bit of encouragement, but still touching on some things. As survivors of trauma, there's so many layers to that. There's so many layers to your healing. There's so many layers to your evolution and your emergence, um, and manifestation, because that's what it is. Every day we grow, every day we evolve, and we manifest into the woman that or person that we are, ultimately we're designed to be. Um, and it's sort of an emergence. Your healing is a journey of emergence. You are emerging from the rubble um, of your storms, and I pray that the prayer is always that we come out clean, washed away. Um, but sometimes there's some residue and residuals that come along with that, and self-esteem is one of them. So I was reading about the prophet's widow, um, and I feel like this relates to us as survivors and victors in so many different ways. Um, she was considered the least of all the people in an ancient society. And when her husband died, his inheritance went to his sons, not to her, the wife who bore the children, um, kept the house, maintained the family, but to the sons. Um, and if she had no children in those times, um, she was to return to her father's household. That was their way, of life, um, back then. And so her vulnerable, being in that state, it made women vulnerable. It puts you at the mercy of others, um, or those who society deemed more superior, uh, to them. And so for me, survivors of poverty, of trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, the neglected, um, a lot of times survivors feel like they're at the mercy, of society, of, those that they consider to have been authority figures over their lives, the ones that were supposed to ultimately care for them who did not. Somebody failed you somewhere. Um, and so this particular scripture, um, resonated with me. Uh, and I believe it comes out of Kings 4, verses 1 through 7. I mean, I won't get too deep into the scripture, because I'm not a Bible scholar, but I can read. um, and in those times, the Jewish scripture clearly stated that there should be mercy and justice for widows. So that spoke to me on a whole other level, because although the scriptures and their doctrine, um, stated that, um, they were to basically cover and protect the widow. They didn't acknowledge that, and they basically did what they wanted to do, as oftentimes people do when they feel like they are superior to others. So, you know, when we are in that state and we're going through what we're going through, a lot of times, we feel like we're at the mercy of others, and we feel like we need, their validation to function, to heal, to move forward. And that's a lie. That's a lie of your mind's own making. You're holding yourself hostage to something that has nothing to do with you. And do it anyway. Do what God told you to do, what you feel led to do. You have to do that anyway, regardless of to what anyone else feels or, um, says about you. People have their own agendas. People have their own way of thinking. And even the most godly person is still a human. And so, in their humanness, because we battle with our flesh daily, they can they are still capable of making misjudgments and mishandling people. So you cannot put your full and total trust in man. You cannot just lay yourself bare and say, I'm going to be whatever the world says I am, because the world lies, people lie, and that's just the truth of the matter. Even the best person can have worse days, bad days, um, and say and do the wrong thing. And so we cannot hold people to a standard that they didn't ask to be held to. And when you base your growth, your development, your evolution, your manifestation, all of that, on the world and someone else's opinion or view of you, you put yourself in a position to be manipulated. That is why it is so important to do the work, do the research for yourself. You have to know what you know, what you know, and what you don't know. You get it? Don't let that go over your head now. So, when you don't have a full understanding of something, you need to go seek that information out and find it for yourself. So, you know, for the widow, her husband had been a part of, um, you know, a real unique and close community in Israel. Um, and and he was a prophet. Um, but she was vulnerable. Like her husband was of this great stature, and she was still just a woman. Now I've been referred to as just a skirt by a man of God. Okay. Um, and so, this woman, the creditors were coming after her, and she was being um, just basically targeted because of what they assumed was her vulnerability. They found her to be an easy target, and people sometimes target who they the, what whom or what they consider to be weak, um, even mentally, and that it's not right, but it's what it is. And when you find yourself on the receiving end of that behavior, you have to know the difference. You have to be able to see if it doesn't feel right, it ain't right. Trust your gut. Trust that little voice down on the inside, that little nagging voice that says, "Ma'am, now this don't, that unsettling feeling that when you are, for me, when I'm in a situation that I know I have no business being in, or I'm in the presence of someone that I know I don't have any business being in the presence of, I get this like knot, this flipping in my stomach. And I've always known and trusted that that was like God's way of, that was my warning shot. Listen, I'm giving you the Hail Mary before you go any further. Um, and that doesn't mean that I always listen to it, even when and again, I know better. And it has gotten me in some really, really, really precarious situations. So, she knew that her only way of survival were her two sons. Case in point, she used what she had. Um, so Elisha, when she went to Elisha and appealed to him, and just basically laid out her situation before him, he asked what she had in her house. And Elijah was a prophet. Um, and you can go to Second Kings chapter 4, verse 2 to get more information on that. Um, and she said, "All I have is this simple jar of oil." And he said to her, um, to pour it out. That was the only thing that she had of value, was that oil. And she used that oil, um, and poured it, out of obedience. And listen, that oil was all she had. But out of that oil came a miracle. God restored and gave her everything she needed, um, to move forward and to prosper. And so the point of this, and why, let me tie it all together, was is that you use what God has given you. Um, you have to look at you and evaluate what you have, and how it could be used to make good out of a bad situation. All she had was oil. That's something very simple to us, but it was something very meaningful to her. And all she had was her oil and her story. She went to Elijah with her story, and she used her oil, and God opened up the world to her, basically, a whole new world. And to have something so small help you create something so big is amazing. And so for us, our story is our oil, our survival, our plight. That is our oil. That's our story. What we went through is our story. How we survived it is our oil, and how we share it. And so I want to encourage you to open your mouth, share your story, share what you've gone through. That is your oil, and you can, and it will allow you to make something so great out of something so terrible. Um, and maybe give you a better understanding um, of what it was all for. As a survivor, I have the same questions you have. Why? Why me? Why did you choose me? Like, when is it going to stop? When is it going to end? I ask myself those questions repeatedly throughout my life. Um, I just couldn't understand why, and I was a child, like, but why? Like, I just didn't understand. And it's okay to question God. It's okay to ask questions He wants you to. And 9 times out of 10, He'll answer if He chooses to in His time. But here's the thing. Um, you cannot be afraid to ask the questions, but you also cannot be afraid of the answer. So when I asked God the question and He gave me the answer in His time, um, and He urged me to open my mouth, I was like, "What you mean? Hmm? What you talking about? Is that absolutely necessary?" And I bucked against the process completely. Like, I was like, "I'm not doing that. No way." So people can judge me further? Yeah, no. Because there are people out there who will judge your story. But once He gave me peace and I made peace with it, and He gave me some understanding as to why it was necessary, I had no choice but to move in it. And in moving in it, I'm currently in one of the biggest faith walks I've ever been in. And this situation that I'm in, this is a situation, is a faith walk. Me getting on this platform, me sharing my story, me, bearing my soul and experiences, that there's some things that are even in my book that my dad didn't even know about. There are family members who don't know about. Um, and so it's a faith walk. But guess what? This is my oil. This is my experience. This is what I have to give to the world. And it's me. And guess what? God found me worthy enough to take me through it, bring me out of it, and allow me to help and encourage someone else. That's my oil. My oil is being able to encourage and empower. My oil is being able to honestly and earnestly tell you what a faith walk looks like, because this is a faith walk. My oil is me not only being able to get on here and share with you, but share with you real life experiences, real things, not just something that I've read somewhere or learned in a classroom. No, this is what I survived. This is how I survived. You are not alone in your walk. You're not alone in your story. And what you went through, it matters. And people need to hear from you. And so in this season, we have to embrace our oil, embrace your gifts. What is it that you have that you can make good out of a bad situation? Your story. Maybe you were the person who had to cover your siblings while your mother worked a million jobs. So maybe it's nurturing. That's your oil. Nurture the village. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's sewing. Um, no gift, no skill is too small to be shared. Share it. Open your mouth. People need to hear from you. And don't let anybody diminish your oil. Because just like I don't know the cost of your oil, you definitely don't know the cost of mine. And I can tell you it was a very high price for a child, for anybody, for a person to pay. And you have to be okay with that and understand and know that It was all for a plan and a purpose. Also, in that, be mindful of like the prophet's wife, the creditors, the creditors, aka the predators, the people that will try to prey on your vulnerability, prey on what they consider to be your ignorance, because unfortunately, that's the world we live in. There's a heaven and there's a hell. There's good and there's bad. And there are people who will allow themselves to open themselves up to be used by the enemy. And we will encounter them. But just as you survived what you went through, you'll survive them too. Those skills don't leave. We just have to pay attention and tap into them and know and understand that sometimes you will run across a person who is um have gone through some things and survived some things themselves and choose to use their oil for something else. Some people get so stuck in survival mode that they become a detriment to others. And you have to be aware and mindful of those people as well. My daily prayer is that God does not gives me the strength and the wisdom to not allow those people to change my heart, because I earned this oil. I earned every moment of this story. I survived it. And I refuse to be anybody's victim ever. And when people attack you or diminish you or come for you, it's I get it. It's like being re-victimized all over again. But you have to remember what you survived already and use those skills and know that if God gave it to you, he's got a use for it. And like the widow, he will take that oil and use your gifting in a mighty, mighty, mighty way and open up doors for you. Your name will probably be spoken in rooms that you've not even put your foot in yet. It is possible. It is possible. Come out of that prison that you created in your own mind. And again, I'm speaking from experience. I literally convinced myself that there were limitations on what I could do. I convinced myself that I couldn't do certain things. Oh, that's just not within my reach. I wasn't made for that. Um, and there's still days that I say that I'm not made for this. I'm not. I'm like, what? You tell God what you think, and He'll tell you what He knows. Uh, but as part of, and I know that you have to get there, and I had to get there. But you have to be a willing participant in the journey. You have to be a willing participant in your own healing, in your own fight. The widow was a willing participant. She did not just, she could have just laid down and accepted her circumstances. It is what it is. It's the way of, the world at this time. And she could have just took it and shrunk back, but she didn't. My oil may not be much, but this is all I have. And I'm going to give it all I got. And she was rewarded for it. So even that small thing that you have on the inside that you think is meaningless, no, you take that little bit of thing and you run with it and you press with it and you pour out, and God will definitely pour in. That's the blessing in being you. That's the blessing in your story. And know and understand that God is definitely going to get the glory. Period. Nobody can change that. But stop minimizing who you are. Stop minimizing what you've gone through. Stop minimizing your gifts. They're bigger than what you think. You're capable of more than you think you're capable of. And again, I'm telling you, I'm coming from a place of I'm in it. I looked at the stats for my podcast, and it tells you, um, platform that I use tells me what countries, what states, what cities, that people are downloading, not just listening, downloading, um, my podcast. And I was so humbled that, I mean, people are listening to my voice in France, in Jamaica, in Brazil. I'm like, what? Huh? Me? And I'm just in awe of it. And it's not just one download here or there. It's not just one listen because it tells me the streams and it tells me the downloads. People are downloading um this my podcast. What a reach, first and foremost. And this little bit of oil, that thing that I thought was so small, um, ended up being something so much bigger than I could have ever imagined. And shout out to you all. Thank you for downloading and listening to this regular girl. I appreciate you. Um, and I pray you continue to get something out of this. But I am an ordinary girl trying to do extraordinary things. That is extraordinary to me. And the ones that are listening to my podcast don't even know what I look like. They're just listening to my podcast. If that is not an example of what God will do with something that you think is so small, I don't know what is. That's a miracle. I've hit um over 100 downloads. People are watching the vlog, and you could have never told me 3 months ago when I started this journey, when I wrote this book, um, that this is where I would be. And so, for a small town girl like myself who has survived some things, I'm an example of what God can and will do. And yes, I had naysayers. I had people tell me that I was wrong, that they just didn't believe that this is what God had told me to do. Well, it's not for you to understand. As long as He gave me the understanding, He's going to put this where it needs to be. And clearly, He has done that abundantly. Um, and so, be encouraged. Don't minimize your gifts. That is your oil, your story, your skills, your service, your heart. Um, that is your oil. And if nothing else, I'm an example of what God will do with your oil. You're watching this. Ding, ding, ding. That is your oil. Use it. Um, embrace it. It may not fit everyone. What you have to say, your story may not be received well by everyone, but even if it's just one, your story matters. And you're going to encourage and empower somebody in a mighty way. And again, it doesn't just have to be your story, it can be your service, your skills. Cook, serve the homeless, love on somebody's children, um, just change something, encourage somebody, love on somebody. Everybody's oil will look different, everybody's gifting looks different. Um, but tap into yours. And if you don't know what that is, then ask and be patient and wait for the answer. And He will answer. And continue to heal, continue to grow, because as you heal and as you grow, that gifting will grow. That oil will go from a few drops to a mighty pour. This is a pour. Um, and so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough. You have no idea how humbling this is and how excited I am for all the things that God has revealed to me that He is going to do in this season. Um, it is our reaping season, it is my reaping season. We're going to reap the harvest of all the seeds that we have planted. We are going to come out of all the muck of our past. And we are going to heal from our traumas and we are going to hit the ground running. And we are going to pull up a lot of people along the way. Ceilings will be broken, doors will be kicked down. It is time. Launch the vision, move and step out on faith. Open your mouth. The world needs to hear from you. Take your place. Don't shrink back and stop thinking that you're not worthy or you can't do it or it's not for you. And guard your ear gates, guard your eye gates, focus. Don't allow outside influence to change what God has already told you, what God has already given you. Because if I had listened to that, I wouldn't be married, I wouldn't have children, I wouldn't have gone to nursing school, I wouldn't have completed the multitude of things that I have accomplished. Because my journey was full of naysayers, people who wanted to control my gifts, people who wanted to use my gifts, people who simply wanted to use and manipulate me for their own benefit. Did I always catch it? No, but I survived it because that's what I do. And I didn't allow that, and I refused to allow those people to change my heart. It's not going to happen. This oil cost me something. Yep, you can't take it from me. So, again, ask God. Ask God what it is He would have for you to do. Ask Him to show you, bring to the forefront, make plain to you what you have that was maybe considered bad, but that He could turn it for good and that you could use it. Ask God to show you your oil and then pour out your story, your skills, just pour it out. Because the prophet's widow, that's all she had. That's all she had was her journey, and that journey led her to her most valuable possession, her oil. That is your most valuable possession. So, thank you guys for joining me today. Check out the podcast and, the vlog on YouTube. Um, Also, look out for the book, She Emerged, the Manifestation of Me, prayerfully coming out June 2021 or maybe sooner. Don't forget to check out my homegirl, my sister, my friend, Tamita Brockington, Marriage is Not a Fairy Tale, at tamitabrockington.wixsite.com. Her book is phenomenal and it's a great read whether you're married or a wife in waiting. That is now available. Again, that is Tamita Brockington at .wixsite.com. Um, Also, something new, my other sister, Lisa Tate Stevenson. Have you ever heard a butterfly cry? This book is another amazing sister who has walked out of her trauma from trauma to triumph. And that is now available at Lisa V Tate Stevenson.org. You can check out the book and you can also check out her podcast, um, Let's Talk Relationship, Not Religion. Awesome, awesome, awesome platform. Um, and have a great day. Let's end it like that. Pour that oil out. Um, Pour, 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 and God will continue to pour in. Again, no gift is too small, um, and no mountain is too big for God to bring you over. So, like I always end this, The sun rises alone every day and still manages to shine. The moon rises alone every night and still manages to light someone's way. Be the light that lights someone's way. Catch you later.